Hare Krishna everyone. A warm welcome once again and very good evening. Today we are going to discuss our penultimate chapter of Bhagavad Gita series, Bhagavad Gita, which is chapter number 17th, titled as in our series as Lifestyle Management. Before we move to chapter 17th or discussions of today's topic, which is over the lifestyle management, let's just have a quick recap on the yesterday's discussion, which is based on divine and demonic. So, chapter number 16, divine and demonic, we discuss about how these two forces are acting in and around you and how to choose divine and leave demonic. And that wisdom can only be obtained through Vedic scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and that literature itself is not enough. It has to be imparted through authority with a bona fide guru. And now, with all of these, let's have here chapter number 17 from such a authority. And for this, I'd like to invite His Grace Madan Sundar Prabhu to have the chapter number 17 discussion, which is again very important, very practical chapter. Lifestyle management. We're going to learn some of those practical tips which can bring change, positive change in your life. So I would, invite His Grace Madan Sundar Prabhu now without any further delay to give us a knowledge and how to bring this positive change in our life. With this, thank you all of you once again for joining. Thank you, Prabhuji, for joining. A warm welcome.
Hare Krishna Shikha Prabhu. So, once again, we welcome all the audience and participants for this ongoing Gita Essence series. We are on the second last session. We're almost at the brink of completing this Gita Essence series. So, once again, sincere gratitude to each one of you for joining us again for the 17th day or for the 17th time. So, to begin with, we'll offer a prayer. Those of you who know these prayers can recite along with me, and while others can actually fold their hands, take 3 deep breaths. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Pashyatadi Shatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gau Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So once again, thank you all for joining in for today's discussion. So Shikapu has very nicely given a recap of this topic titled as Divine and Demoniac based on the 16th chapter. But just to once again summarize and also to give you the connection as we move to the 17th episode. To begin with, we saw in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Shri Krishna spoke about an inverted banyan tree that has its roots upwards and the branches downwards. And through this analogy, Lord Shri Krishna explained Arjuna through him to all of us the material world wherein we are trying to make our permanent residence is actually a temporary accommodation. And we gave an example or analogy of a hotel versus home, wherein our real home is in the spiritual world. This temporary place, which is being compared to an inverted banyan tree, is actually not a place where we can find happiness. Every living entity is searching for or looking for Sat, Chit, and Ananda, but this is not the place where we can get Sat, Chit, or Ananda. That is spiritual world. And this wisdom was shared just to, or this knowledge, transcendental knowledge was shared just to loosen the shackles of our attachment to this material world. After making this point very clear, then comes the 16th chapter where Lord Shri Krishna begins to talk about how there are two kinds of living entities. One is called as divine, other is called as demoniac. And we all have that experience of two voices within us. Sometimes the one voice is saying, yes, this is the right path, you should do it. Another is saying, no, 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 don't do it. What about your sense gratification? What about the enjoyment that you would miss out if you take to the spiritual life and spiritual culture and whatnot? So Lord Shri Krishna talks about it, and to help us make the right decision in our life, because ultimately our life is based on our choices that we make. To live in this world or not is a choice that we have to make. And we had already made a choice in the past. That's the reason all of us have this body or a vehicle to fulfill our desires in this world. So Lord Shri Krishna begins to talk about the qualities of the divine, 26 qualities which were mentioned. We briefly discussed that, and then we had a more discussion about the demoniac qualities, where we talked about the attitudes, mentality, symptoms, their knowledge, realizations, and some few other related things or attributes to it. And our protagonist for yesterday's episode was Duryodhan. For in general, for all our episodes, it was used to be Arjuna, but yesterday it was Duryodhan because yesterday more or less discussion was about a demoniac person. How do such person behave? So the idea of discussing all this attitude, traits, one's mentality, one's thinking, rationalization, realization, etc., and all that, just to very closely analyze or help one to closely analyze how one thinks and how one acts. Oftentimes, you might have heard people say, "I never do anything wrong. I don't know why things are happening bad to me." By default, is the nature of even the most demonic person to think, I'm all good. I never cause any harm to anyone. To give you an example, it is this person uh, was a general in the Hitler's army. And there was a masoor, the massage person, who was massaging this person. This is something back in 1940s or 41. I hope all of you are aware of Hitler, Adolf Hitler, who was responsible for the killing of, I believe, 6 million Jews, and also a lot of massacre in general all around the world because of the Second World War. So the Masood began to talk to the general of SS camp, SS army, which was responsible for the killing of so many millions and millions of people. And during the course of discussion, something very interesting happened where the discussion began to happen on the subject of diet, food. And the general said, or the Masood asked, so, sir, what do you do? What do you actually eat? Do you eat non vegetarian or vegetarian? And he said, I'm vegetarian. And the Masood was surprised because most of the people in SS army were actually non-vegetarian. So he asked, why? How come you're vegetarian when all your friends, people around you all are non-vegetarian? So he said, I am a staunch follower of non-violence. I mean, the person who gave directions to the killing of the innocent men and women and the kids and the old, he's saying, I'm a staunch follower of nonviolence. So, like some of you would have been surprised. Similarly, the Masood was surprised. He says, sir, how can you say that you're a staunch follower or believer of nonviolence when you actually, under your directions and orders, so many people are being killed on a day to day basis? They're tortured to death. And you know what he said? He said, the act that I'm doing may seem demoniac, but it is for the betterment of humanity. These people need to be killed because they are demons. They are the cause of all the problems or all the evils in the society. So, the point I'm trying to make, even a demoniac person rationalizes his action and thinks himself to be godly. Therefore, Lord Shri Krishna goes into details of describing these attitudes, behaviors, mentality, and one's thinking, the demonic thinking. And after talking about it, Arjuna began to ponder, my dear Lord, how does this whole demonic nature develops? How does this whole journey of becoming demoniac happens? And Lord Shri Krishna says, there are three gates to hell: Kama, Krodha, Lobha. And it all begins with Kam, desires. unfulfilled desires, and they always keep on burning, and they always drive a man crazy to an extent where a person can become so self centered, so selfish, that he does not even think about the results of his action, the results of his behavior on the lives of others, just like Ravana, a classic example of a self centered and selfish person, where he would kidnap the wives of other men, where he would actually rape the ladies, the wives of other men. I don't want to get into details of Ravana, this aspect of life. Uh, anyways, we have enough negative news around the world. But the point is, we know about Mother Sita being abducted, kidnapped by Ravana. So what does it teach us? So self-centered, so egoistic, so selfish. He didn't thought about how would Sita feel, what happened to Ram, and this is what it means. It all begins with unfulfilled desire. So Lord Shri Krishna says, those who do not follow scriptures, those who violate scriptures, they are the one who follow the path of demonic life. They tend to fall down from the path of the dharma or righteousness, and eventually they would become or cultivate demonic tendency. Think about it. Where is the world today heading it? What direction it is taking to? Who actually believes in scriptures? Who talks about it? In fact, we are told it's mythology, and on the name of religion, some man made religions have been created who are the cause of the greatest war in the history of mankind. To defend one's religion, crusades started, then jihad started, and since last 1,000 years, at least 1,000 years, there has been a constant conflict on the basis of religion. The idea of religion is to develop love of Godhead. And the idea of developing love of Godhead is to develop love for all, one and all. Not only love for humanity, but love for all living entities, because every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. But look at the idea of religion today, which does not develop love of Godhead. Forget about love of Godhead. It only breeds hatred for other living entities. Why I say hatred for the living entities? Because most of the religious people outright eat non-vegetarian diet or take non-vegetarian diet, and what to speak about, criticizing or even going to an extent of harming the people of other faith or other religion like that. So then Lord Shri Krishna says in the concluding verse 17th chapter that if you want to protect yourself from the demoniac path or from the sinful life, if you want to stop yourself from degrading further, then we have to follow the scriptures. In essence, Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. Who abides by these three only can have a trajectory, a progressive trajectory in one's life. Otherwise, such a person's life is certainly doomed, and such people are a headache for oneself and a headache for society. They only cause disturbance, and we have plenty of examples like that. So, this was, in an essence, the subject matter of chapter 16 of the episode 16, which I would say is a very, very important. If time permits, do revisit and think, contemplate on the subject matter of like demonic tendencies that can help us make right decisions in our life. So now, after this chapter concluded, Arjuna inquired, wherein Arjuna asked, "My dear Lord," Arjuna, this is 17th chapter, first verse. This is how 17th chapter begins, where Arjuna inquired and he raised a question. He said, "Ye shastra vidhyam usrachya yajante shatyayan vitaha tesham nishtha tu ka Krishna sattvamaho rajastamaha." My dear Lord, you have described two kinds of people, one who follow scriptures, one who do not follow scriptures. What about those who are in between of that? There is another category of people who are between, which means they have a faith. They have a faith in some higher being. They surrender themselves to some process, certain rules and regulation, but that is not according to scripture. So what happens to them? They are abiding to certain rules and regulation, certain religious principles, but not according to scriptures. So do they also become progressive? Do they also have a privilege to make advancement in spiritual life and ultimately come to you? Is precisely Arjuna's question. So Arjuna says, let me read the translation. What is the situation of those who do not follow the principles of scripture but worship according to their own imagination? Are they in goodness, passion, ignorance? In what mode they function? Can you think of any examples where in the modern time people worship according to their imagination? How many of you have heard of Santoshi Ma? Does anyone know of any Vedic reference of Santoshi Ma? There is only one reference that in 1976 or 77 there was a Bollywood movie about Santoshi Ma. That is the only reference which people can quote. And some of people got so inspired by that movie, they built a temple of Santoshi Ma. And like that, Santoshi Ma, this was 33 crore plus one addition to the batch of 33 crore demigods like that. Any other examples? I just give you an example of Santoshi Ma like that. Any other example where people concoct begin to practice certain religious principles on their imagination? Well, I'll tell you, most of the things that we have done in our life until now is actually more or less based on this kind of a faith. What is that faith? My mother did it, my father did it, I am doing it. Have you ever bothered to ask what is this whole science behind it? How did this ritual started? What is the meaning of this ritual? I know there's so many activities I can't go into details, particularly. That is what actually kind of put off a younger generation, the youth of the modern time. They say in our tradition there's so many rules and regulation. Every other day there is fasting. I remember growing up, my mother would fast almost 3 or 4 times in a week, and I was like, "Mother, when do you eat? You're so slim and thin. You don't gain any weight because you don't eat." Today is Durga's fasting. Tomorrow is Hanumanji's fasting. Day after tomorrow is Shivji's fasting. I say all day if you fast, then how would you survive like that? So of course that's okay. That's all right. But I'm just giving an example, and this is what Arjuna is raising a question here. So faith. Now, if one with faith follows some rules which are not mentioned in the scriptural injunctions, what is his position is what precisely Arjuna is trying to ask. This is purport of Srila Prabhupada, where Prabhupada is elaborating on the question. Are those who create some sort of God by selecting a human being and placing their faith in him, worshipping in goodness, passion, ignorance? Do such persons attain perfection stage of life? There are many man-made gods, or there are many gurus who people consider them to be God and they worship them. Yes or no? There are many. Would not prefer to take names, but I believe all of you are aware. So the question is asked for these kind of followers. What happens to them? In which mode are they worshipping, and do they attain perfection of spiritual life? Prabhupada says further, is it possible for them to be situated in real knowledge and elevate themselves to the highest perfection stage? It's very interesting to look into the details of why Arjuna is asking that this kind of a question. Actually, it indirectly glorifies the Vedic culture. Vedic culture, if you look at it, in Vedic culture is so broad-minded and so accommodative that allows anyone and everyone to become a part or to latch onto the Vedic culture according to their mode of consciousness, and accordingly there are injunctions and the instructions given to that particular person according to the mode of consciousness they are in. So, in other words, Vedic scripture do not reject anyone but accommodate with an idea to help them become progressive. Therefore, this kind of a question is coming in the mind of Arjuna. My dear Lord, just like Vedas accommodate everyone, now do you have any accommodation for these people who do not follow Vedas but at least have faith in someone? Because you're all magnanimous, all kind hearted. So, can you let me know what is their situation? Do those who do not follow the rules and regulations of the scriptures but have faith in something and worship gods and demigods and men attain success in their efforts? Arjuna is putting these questions to Krishna. And this is how the 17th chapter starts, which is also titled as the divisions of faith. In this chapter, Lord Shri Krishna explains that how a person's affiliation to a particular mode, of consciousness, sattvagun, rajagun, and tamagun, will determine his faith. Just like we know association is contagious, Similarly, association with a mode represents a particular faith. For example, although atheists say they are faithless, they are non believers, but do you all agree they also have a faith? And their faith is God does not exist. How are they non believers? Even they are faithful to their religion where there is no God in their religion. In essence, different types of faith arises for different association with more. So in this chapter, Lord Shri Krishna is going to introduce different elements of our life which are directly influenced by the modes of consciousness. And if we understand this, then we can plan our life properly in a right direction. So, lifestyle management is a very famous subject matter where discussion happens on how to find balance in your PQ, EQ, IQ, and SQ, where PQ stands for physical quotient, EQ emotional quotient, IQ intelligent quotient, and SQ is spiritual quotient. How to find balance in each of these so that there is a progressive growth of an individual. To give an example, imagine you have a very nice food available to eat. You have an organic diet, you have an organic milk coming from the from the goshala next to your house every day. You have a great food available that helps your physical growth and physical well-being, but emotionally you are ransacked. Emotionally you are totally disturbed because you don't have any good relationship. You don't even have any relationship with your mother or father, brother, sister, and because of which you have become an emotional wreck. Can you be progressive in that situation? Is it possible? No. Similarly for our intelligence quotient and similarly for spiritual quotient. So here, that's a subject matter which we can discuss some other time to focus on all the four aspects, four quadrants of life. They also call us four quadrants of life. However, in this particular topic, we'll focus on certain things that can actually help us change our life when we understand how moods affect the kind of music we hear, the kind of food we eat, the kind of austerities, the kind of sacrifices, the kind of charity, and how we give charity. If we understand the science behind it, that will also have a tremendous impact on transforming your life and making or selecting a right lifestyle for oneself. To begin with, the acronym, as usual, for we give for every chapter. The acronym for this chapter is FACE, where F stands for faith. Although religious people are often referred to as people of faith, yes, we are called as believers. Believers, they believe, they don't have any evidence of it, but the matter of fact is everyone has faith. We all put faith in traffic lights, doctors, even banks, to name. Even imagine you're traveling in a flight, don't you put faith in pilot that he's not going to fall asleep and flying the plane? you know and the a traffic controller and the flight, the pilot probably would not have had a fight or something, and they're going to cooperate with each other and whatnot. So without faith, we cannot function in this world. So to say that religious people are believers is totally wrong, because everyone is a believer. What does faith means actually? Faith is quite faith actually empowers. Faith means opportunity, and to see a value in something, even though we may not have a direct experience of it or immediate experience of it. As I said, flying in a plane, you don't even know the pilot. You don't even have an experience that he's a good pilot or not, but you have a faith. So to see an opportunity and to see a value in something, and accordingly to function, that's the point. And according to the faith that we have, we create our worldviews, we select a lifestyle, and we create traits of behaviors. And according to this, the faith set of faith or our perceptions, different kinds of religious views are created. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport to third verse, where Prabhupada says, we find different types of faith in this world, and there are different types of religion due to different types of faith. Very important. Uh, The real principle of religious faith is situated in the mode of pure goodness. The real principle of religious faith. But because the heart is tainted, we find different types of religious principles. Thus, according to different types of faith, there are different kinds of worship. So you see people acknowledging and accepting different types of religions. Sometimes they're changing religions. So how do they accept certain religion? How do they develop faith? That all begins with the kind of mode of consciousness they're cultivating. If you will understand the subject matter, you can very clearly see what religions are under mode of ignorance, and you will understand why these people under this religion are always fighting and killing each other, because that is the nature of tamoguna or mode of ignorance. Now, similarly, you'll find religion under mode of passion or religion dictated by mode of passion. You'll find them, criticizing, competing, and many other things that they can do. And similarly, the religious practices or religions practice under mode of goodness, and you find people a little more relaxed, calm, sober, and they mind their own business, and they actually believe in doing good to others without harming to others. So, like this, you'll see, and ultimately, there is another set of religion which is practiced in pure goodness, where the goal, the sole aim is love of Godhead. So, once you understand the science of modes of consciousness, you can see very clearly how this whole world is functioning and why people have different set of faiths, different set of religious views and beliefs. So, how do we acquire faith? Prabhupada explains further in the purport. Everyone has a particular kind of a faith, regardless of what he is. But his faith is considered good, passionate, or ignorant according to the nature he has acquired. Thus, according to his particular type of faith, one associates with certain persons. So, according to the nature he has acquired, which means according to the mode of consciousness, it gives birth to a certain kind of faith, which means the person is in mode of ignorance. It will give rise to a certain faith, wherein destroying the lives, wherein destroying the temples or the place of worship of others is what is considered holy for them, is considered godly for them. This is how the people in mode of ignorance function, and this is how they develop a faith. Similarly, there is a faith that develops in mode of passion, where the religion is being used for the sole purpose of one's own material progress, or where religion is used for dharma, artha, kama, moksha, not moksha, dharma, artha, kama, to fulfill one's own, desires to enjoy this world. And then there is a faith which is born out of mode of goodness, where the person develops a faith where he worships as a matter of duty, as a matter of obligation, understanding there is a supreme Lord who provides for everything, and we should be grateful for that person and every living entity, because goodness is the platform of knowledge, where he understands that every living entity is a part and parcel of the supreme Lord. Therefore, I should not become envious of others. If I cannot help them, at least I should not harm them. So this is at least at the platform of goodness. And the faith that develops in the platform which is beyond the modes, which is called a Shuddha Sattva Guna, pure goodness. And there the faith is, I am the eternal servant of the Supreme Lord and all the living entities. I'm here to serve. Because serve is a propensity of every living entity. And now I'm going to serve not my mind and senses, I'm going to serve the Lord. And on behalf of the Lord, I'm going to serve all humanity, all living entities, by helping them awaken their love of Godhead. So, this is how people develop faith and different according to the modes that they have cultivated. And how do they cultivate this different kind of modes? It depends on the kind of association you keep, the kind of people you associate. If you have people around you in mode of ignorance, you will cultivate mode of ignorance. If you have people around in mode of passion, that's what you will become. That's the point. Therefore, you remember, if you want to overcome and defeat lust, the very first thing is A, not A for apple, but A for association. Association of saintly people. That's the point about it. So, Lord Shri Krishna tells, what are the types of worship which are done? Krishna says, Yajante satvika devan In mode of goodness, people worship devatas. Yaksha, Raksham, Rajasa. In mode of passion, people worship demons. What demons refers to? Demon refers to those people who claim themselves to be God. So demon doesn't refers to those who have two what they call as horns. Not that those who have horns and an ugly looking face. It refers to people who claim themselves to be God. And they approach these people because they promise, if you take my shelter, I will cure you from your sickness. I'll get you promotion. I'll get you visa to America and whatnot. So that's where mode of passion gets activated. And third, preta bhuta ganam chanye yajante tamasa janaha. Those who worship ghosts, spirits, also the worship of goddess Kali, etc. That is under the mode of ignorance. To give you an example of Yaksha Raksham Rajasa, where the people actually worship men to be God. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport of this verse, very interesting. He said during Second World War in Calcutta, there was a man who had built a temple for Hitler. During Second World War, there was a man in Calcutta who built a temple for Hitler. Why did he build a temple for Hitler? Because of the Second World War, which was instigated by Hitler, this man became very rich. So won't be surprised if there is a temple for COVID virus, because some people have definitely earned a lot of money because of it. So that is what it means, Yaksha Raksham Siraj. So like this, there are different modes of worship according to the mode of consciousness. To summarize, those who are in Tamoguna, they worship ghost, spirit. In other words, their faith is in irreligious activities. Those who are in mode of ignorance, their faith is God does not exist. These are the category of people who fall under atheist. Those who do not believe God exists. That's the point. Those who are in passion, they believe men to be supreme, man to be God, and they surrender to them. And those who are in goodness, they worship devatas like Lord Shiva, Brahma, Ganesh, Durga, ityadi, ityadi, etc. And those who are in pure goodness, which is beyond the modes, they worship Lord Shri Krishna, who is actually beyond the modes like that. So throughout this chapter now, we'll see Lord Shri Krishna, how he's going to discuss all his themes in relation with the modes. And to make the subject matter a little more easy, Lord Shri Krishna would give a little more down-to-earth examples with which we can easily relate. To begin with, he will give an example how we make a choice of food according to the mode we are situated. By the way, is it all making sense? Because I'm not able to see any one of you. Are you able to understand the subject matter? I would say it's a very, very important subject matter to understand and to develop a right world view and understand why there are people in different what do I say, faith in different worship. So I believe there is a delay, so I'll continue. You can say yes or no if it's making sense for all of you or not. So, all right, I'll continue. So, let's take another case study where Krishna says, even the choice of food is based of the mode of consciousness you're situated. So, question rises, what kind of food a person in mode of goodness choose to eat? What would be his preference? Let's take a look. Very interesting. Krishna says, Ayusatva balarogya sukhapriti vivardhana rasya snigdhastra hritya ahara satvika priya. What kind of ahar satvika priya? Jo, the person who is in mode of goodness, what kind of food ahar is priya, is dear to such a person? Ayu sattva bala arogya, which increases one's ayu, you know, and by which one's heart becomes purified. Sukha priti vivardhanaha, which gives strength, happiness, and satisfaction. Rasaya snigdhas tirahritya, that is means purification of heart. And such foods are rasa, juicy, fatty, wholesome, and hridaya, sthira hridaya, they are pleasing to the heart. Any examples? Which food are in the mode of goodness? Right now, I can see some of the guests sitting here are relishing mango. That is the food in mode of goodness. The fresh, ripe mango, isn't it? I'm not talking the canned food. Canned food is a different category. So anything which is freshly cooked, which is consumed within, I believe, 3 to 6 hours is the time which Prabhupada writes in the purport here, and vegetarian diet, which is not too spicy, not too cold, not too hot, that falls under the food that falls into the category of mode of goodness. And of course, clean, which is cooked properly with a proper cleanliness standard, that falls under the category of mode of goodness. So, what is a food chosen by people who are in mode of passion? What kind of food they like? Any guesses? What kind of food people in mode of passion would like that makes them more passionate? Ah, yes. One of the audience members is saying spicy here. Katu amla lavanat yushna tikshna ruksha vidanina ahara rajasyeshta dukha shoka maya pradaha. The food that causes distress, misery, and disease. Such foods too bitter, too sour, salty, very hot, pungent, dry and burning. This could be very much a vegetarian diet, but as soon as you eat, you feel like your throat is under fire. Your whole belly begins to burn. Now, for those who are in mode of goodness, they will definitely have this kind of an experience when they accept this kind of food. But those who are eating this kind of food from their childhood, they would feel as if a drops of nectar are being dripping through their throat. But the point is, you recognize these are the foods. So if somebody eating like this, you may say, Prabhuji, I eat too much spicy. I feel nectar, because you have got used to eating it and not recognizing how you're being pushed into mode of passion. So this is food in the mode of passion, which actually reduces one's lifespan and causes suffering to the body. So what kind of food would be in the ignorance then? As you can see in the picture, Yatayamam gatarasam puti paryushitam chayat uchishtam api chamedhyam bhojanam tamasa priyam. Food that are prepared more than 3 hours before being eaten. Even vegetarian diet, which is consumed after 3 hours of being cooked, falls under the category of ignorance. And actually, Vedic culture, there's no concept of reheating. And of course, microwave was definitely not there. If you all are aware, hopefully, according to modern science itself, is a cause of a cancer. I hope all of you, if in case using, please make your right choice of not eating food which is being heated in microwave, or else, in case if you are doing it, be careful of it. Food that are tasteless, particularly non-vegetarian diets, you know, decomposed and putrid, food that are consisting of remnants and are untouchable. So, in other words, this is about non-vegetarian diet, all kind of non-vegetarian diet. Among the vegetarian diet, which has been cooked for more than 3 hours, which becomes pale and stale, loses taste. All of us would have an experience when we eat food cooked after 3 hours. Cold food, it has no taste literally. Food only have a taste when you eat which is freshly cooked. And another thing is, which comes into this category, which people today consume a lot, is canned food. The canned food which you find in the canes, packed and sealed, just open it and just heat it. And instant food, which is called as that is called as food in mode of ignorance. So by kind of things we are attracted to, we can understand which mode we are. So some of us are very attracted to canned, non-vegetarian, or are used to eating old stale food. Probably you are in, not probably, you are in Tamoguna. So you understand where you're headed to. And when you are in this kind of a mode of consciousness, you can very easily understand what kind of response you will give. We've already discussed the response. Remember the story of a cap seller? Three brothers, Sattu, Raju, Tamu, and what kind of responses they gave. So this is what your attractions are towards mode of ignorance activities. Then accordingly, your response would also be in that kind of mode. That's the point. So the kind of food we are attracted to, by the environment we are attracted to, including the music we are attracted to, can very clearly give an idea about what mode of consciousness we are situated. To give an example, what kind of music a person in mode of goodness would like to? You have heard of country music? Instrumental like flute, sitar, peaceful music. And of course, you have this, what do you call as God conscious music, bhajans and all that. Particularly bhajans and all that, they are actually beyond the mode of goodness also. Sanskrit recitations, Sanskrit mantras. You go on YouTube, incredible. I saw Hanuman Chalisa by T Series have more than 70 million views, because I grew up reciting Hanuman Chalisa. So whenever I miss my good old childhood days, I kind of play Hanuman Chalisa once in a while. So I remember the statistics. 70 million views. Interesting, people like it. So there are some Sattoguna people around still. What kind of music in Rajaguna? Rajaguna is predominantly understood by attraction to opposite sex and a lot of greed. So all kind of sensual music, which precisely put forward all kind of modern day music, is all in Rajoguna. What kind of Tamoguna music? I would say which is hard rock. You remember? They bang their head, and the head shake, do like this. I don't know if they're doing some kind of yoga asana or this kind of some acrobatic or what. They shake their head and has no lyrics, rock, ruckus sound of instruments. So hard rock means you can take a musical instrument and bang it the way you like it, and then shake your body, and that becomes musical motor dance. All right. So that's about this kind of a thing. So yeah, this is fine. To summarize, we talked about faith, we talked about food, and we're going to speak about sacrifice. So let's take a look at the food once again. The food in ignorance is which is prepared more than 3 hours ago, which is decomposed, putrid, untouchable things, unclean, and which causes distress. A non-vegetarian diet, canned food. Mood of the food in passion refers to very sour, very hot, bitter. Gives a burning sensation. It may give you immediate pleasure, but later on your stomach gets upset. That's mode of passion. What is mode of goodness? Which fulfills three purposes: health, happiness, and satisfaction. And the juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart, which is vegetarian diet, freshly cooked. What is food in pure goodness? Which is offered to the Lord. And what is offered to the Lord? Which is being prepared in goodness. Not that you take an ignorance wala food and offer to the God and call it pure goodness. No, not that. Not even mode of passion food, but food in mode of goodness, which is being offered to the Lord. It becomes a food in pure goodness. Why? Because that food has now become prasadam. Prasad means mercy of Lord, which is free of all kind of sinful reactions. And it invokes and inspires Krishna consciousness within the heart of the living entity who consumes it. Next, what are the sacrifices in the modes? Krishna speaks about verse number 11 to 13 about it. I'll give you the summary of it, not going too much details about sacrifice. So Krishna says, sacrifice performed in ignorance are, as usual, ignorance means total disregard for Vedic scriptures. That is what means. Where there is no prasadam distribution, there's no chanting of Vedic hymns, or no dakshina given to Brahmana. What is a sacrifice performed in passion? Passion means name, fame, pride, arrogance. You want to increase your pratishta, puja la pratishta. So any sacrifice done in passion is just to earn honor, just to earn name, fame, and recognition in the society. That's the idea of sacrifice. What is a sacrifice done in the mode of goodness? As a matter of duty and obligation, and which is performed according to the instructions of scriptures. But what is a sacrifice being done in pure goodness? Which is done as a means to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So let me ask a question to all of you. Yudhishthira Maharaj had performed a Rajasuya Yajna, which means sacrifice. According to you, that Yajna comes under which category? Pure goodness, mode of goodness, or mode of passion, mode of ignorance? And second question, our Duryodhan had performed Vaishnava sacrifice, Vaishnava Yajna, which is very, very pious and wonderful Yajna. But it falls under which category? Mode of ignorance, passion, goodness, or pure goodness? Because ultimately it depends on the motivation of the person by which you're performing an action, not in the thing that you're doing it, but what motivation you carry. So, what would be your answer? In the meantime, you hear this because of the delay, you give an answer. I'll ask the admin here to give me the summary so I can give you the right answer. So, move forward. Let's come to the next section, the second section of this chapter, where A stands for austerities, different kinds of austerities. Very interesting subject matter once again. The point is, in order to achieve anything in this world, we all undergo different kinds of austerities. We sacrifice immediate pleasure and comfort for the purpose of long-term benefit. Yes, all of you have finished your higher senior secondary education as well as your engineering. You know that you definitely perform some late night study hours just to pass the exam. So that's a sacrifice, to sacrifice immediate pleasure. People who place faith in different things perform different austerities in life. And Krishna would now explain beneficial austerities pertaining to body, mind, and words from verse number 14 to 19. What are the beneficial austerities for body, mind, and words. Very, very beautiful section. What is a beneficial austerity for body which we should be performing without a compromise? Devadvija Guru Pragya Pujanam Sauchamarjavam Brahmacharyam Ahimsa Cha Shariram Tapa Uchyate. The favorable austerity which actually takes you on a trajectory of progress, Krishna says, the austerity of the body means Devaduja Guru Pragya, to worship the Supreme Lord, worship the Brahmanas, worship the spiritual master, your Guru, your teacher, and worship superiors like the father and the mother. Then the Devaduja Guru Pragya Pujanam, which is being described, Saucha means cleanliness of the body, taking bath. At least we should take twice, at least minimum 2 times a bath in a day. And in case if we ever attend to the nature's call, where we are, attending to the nature's call of emitting waste from our body, then we should compulsory take bath. These are some of the basic principles of cleanliness. What to speak about what Western culture, they don't even wash themselves. They give you a napkin to clean it off. Now you can understand what would be the understanding of cleanliness there. Now that's about the same cleanliness. Then Arjava means simplicity. you know, uh, Simple living, high thinking, as Prabhupada used to say, not to unnecessarily pamper your body, but too much comfort. That's the point about it. Brahmacharyam, following the principles of celibacy. The principles of celibacy are, there are different set of principles of celibacy for brahmacharya, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasi, like that. Ahimsa, non-violence. Shariram tapa uchyate, which non-violence means according to from your body, you're not creating unnecessary agitation and disturbance for others. That's the point here. These are said to be the favorable austerities of a body. Let's come to, after body, let's come to words. What kind of austerity we should be performing through our speech? Very, very beautiful verse. Anudvekaram vakyam satyam priyam hitam chayat swadhyayabhyasanam chaiva vanmayam tapa uchyate. Vanmayam, van means vak, vak means the speech, the tongue. Mayam tapa uchyate. What is austerity for your tongue? It's anudvekaram vakyam. Austerity of speech means speaking words. What kind of words? Satyam, which are truthful. Priya, which are benefit. Priya means which are, what should I say, pleasing. Priyam hitam. Hitam means hit, which means beneficial to others and not agitating. Swadhyaya abhyasanam chaiva. Every day, regularly reciting Vedic scriptures. Just like we are having this, Hindi class on every Sunday. We have it in the afternoon, where we are studying from what we call as Ishopanishad. So every time we start Ishopanishad discussion, we completely recite all the 18 verses of Ishopanishad. Why? To create the culture of recitation of Vedic, the Sanskrit shlokas, like that. And not agitating and regularly reciting Vedic literature. These are said to be the austerities of speech. I'll give you one example, one classic example. Of course, I know I'm running short of time, but just to help you understand, very, very beautiful example that comes in Ramayana. Hare Krishna. That comes in Ramayana. You all would be aware of when Sugriv saw standing at a hill, when he saw two men coming near to the hill, he got really frightened. And he asked Hanumanji, please go and find out, are they the spy of Vali, or are they just some passengers walking by this area? Because he was really afraid of his life. So Hanumanji, in the disguise of a Brahmana, went to those two men and began to speak to them. And when Lord Ram heard the speech of Hanuman, you know what Ramji said? Hey Lakshman, this man cannot be an ordinary man. The quality of his speech is so refined, is so pleasing to the ears, such a person must be a disciple of Brahaspati, which means Brahaspati is the guru of Devatas, which means this person must be very well learned in Vedic scriptures. Swadhyaya bhasanam chaiva, must have recited Vedic scriptures almost on daily basis, because of which he has cultivated such a quality of speech. By listening to him, my heart has become attracted to him. This is what Ramayana describes. And we all know Hanumanji have got his, education and the Brahaspati, if I'm correct, like that, or, that way. So that is a quality of speech. And you might have seen people who, when they speak, they really charm your heart and they're very conscious not to unnecessarily agitate. And the opposite character of these are the news anchors. They are there, they are born to create agitation in your mind. They are paid to create agitation and disturbance in your mind and heart. That is their job. To give you another example, when Vidura, after the whole tour of the world, came back to Hastinapur to finally break the bonds of attachment of Dhritarashtra and take him to the forest to prepare him for Vanaprastha and finally for sannyas ashram. And this is post-war. Yudhishthira Maharaj had already become the king. The war has already ended long ago. So when Vidura came back, by that time Lord Shri Krishna had already went back. He had already concluded his pastime, and Yadu Vamsha had already all have gone back to Godhead. And the pastime was concluded. The Dwarka had already sank into the ocean. So when Vidura came, Yudhishthira asked, "My dear uncle Vidura," there were many questions were asked, and one of the question was, "How is Lord Shri Krishna? How is the whole Yadu Vamsha?" Now imagine somebody asks you this, and you know that the Yaduvamsha, the destruction have happened. Externally, there was a destruction. Matter of fact, they are all gone back because they all had come from the spiritual world. What would you do? What would you what? How would you react? That's my question to all of you. Let's take a little bit a second. Let's see how would you reply to it? Imagine Yudhishthira Maharaj is asking you that what happened to my relatives? How are they doing? And you know that your relatives who are very dear to this person also have already left this world. What will you do? Would you tell them the truth? Or would you add a spice to it? Arey Yudhishthira, what to tell you? What a Mahayudh happened. Dhamasan Yudh. This fellow bet that fellow beat that fellow. He killed him, he killed that. Sit here, I'll give you 7 days Bhagavad Sapta to tell you what all happened on the fight when a Yadu Vamsha were fighting with each other. I'll give you the whole details of it. What would you do? Would you tell? Yes or no? Matter of fact is, most of us would definitely tell. However, Vidura chose not to tell. That is also austerity of speech, to control yourself and have this much intelligence when to speak, what to speak, and not to speak. Why Vidura chose not to speak? He thought, I should not become a messenger of bad news, because bad news anyways will come on its own accord when the time is right. I have come here for the purpose of helping Dhritarashtra renounce. If I give this news to Yudhishthira Maharaj, Yudhishthira will renounce before Dhritarashtra, and Dhritarashtra would never renounce that. So that's the reason Vidura Maharaj did not speak. What's the answer our audience have given, in case they have responded anything? Would reveal the truth. But see, Vidura. So what do you think? What Vidura did was right or wrong? You can say right or wrong. So I would understand that you have understood the concept. Let's go to the austerity of mind. What is austerity of mind? How we should, what is the right kind of austerities? Krishna says, Manha prasada samyatvam maunamatma vinigraha bhava samshuddhir iti eta tapo manasamuchyate. Satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. I'll not go too much in detail. Of course, it's a subject matter of in-depth discussion, but to give you a little bit concise touch here, simplicity means be happy, be content what comes on its own way. Gravity does not mean not to speak. Gravity means to speak thoughtfully. Self-control, mind, is the center of all the senses. If your mind has self-control, your senses are under control. Purification of one's existence, which means to engage your mind. Engage your mind means the way your mind thinks, accordingly your body acts. So engage your mind in such kind of thoughts, kind of thinking by which you will or you perform actions which help in purification of your existence. But what is satisfaction of the mind, which is very difficult to actually practice? And Srila Prabhupada explains how you can cultivate satisfaction of the mind. Very, very beautiful point Prabhupada mentions. Let's take a look. How can we cultivate satisfaction of the mind? Prabhupada says, satisfaction of the mind can be obtained only by taking the mind away from thoughts of sense enjoyment. The more we think of sense enjoyment, the more the mind becomes dissatisfied, agitated. How many of you agree with it? Have you had that experience? the more, let's make it this way. Before you were practicing Krishna conscious culture or spiritual life, please think about the state of your mind. I believe some of you would be so rested that you would not even getting sleep in the night, or so agitated and disturbed that at this point of time you feel like eating this, having this, another point of time you want this, and you will find dissatisfaction, discontent in anything and everything that you do. Now let's fast forward with your practice of spiritual culture and Krishna consciousness. You find you're a little far much more peaceful and happy in your life. Maybe you don't have all those facilities that you used to long before, yet you're happy with what's going on. That is an example, because now our mind is absorbed in spiritual activities, remembering Krishna, reading, hearing about it, serving Vaishnavas. That's the reason we have become free from this agitation. In the present age, we unnecessarily engage the mind in so many different ways for sense gratification. Today morning in the Bhagavatam class, I was discussing here with the devotees. Back in those days when we were growing up, there was only Doordarshan, one channel, DD, Doordarshan. And we had our fixed hours when you switch it on, watch a serial for half an hour or 1 hour, and then switch it off. Do you all remember those days, good old days, where every Sunday morning, the whole family would come together to watch Mahabharat? I believe 9 o'clock in the morning, it will come right at the time of breakfast, and mother will bring hot parathas. And father will bring hot jalebis from the market. And you have hot paratha with the butter floating on top of it and hot jalebi. Those good old days are gone. Now you have Amul butter, which doesn't even look like butter. And there's no jalebi. Even if there is jalebi, the dalda jalebi. Those days you used to get jalebis in ghee. Anyways, you remember there was a fixed time. You'll watch one serial done, because there was only one channel. There was no need or remote. Now, since the time of invention of remote, person keeps on changing the channels only. Nothing, in no serial program he find contentment. Has you know, the moment ad comes, he has seen 10 movies by the time the ad. Yes or no? You all have that experience. That is what Prabhupada is trying to explain. I'm just giving briefly speaking on the subject matter. You can think more because your time is less. In the present age, we unnecessarily engage the mind in so many different ways for sense gratification. If the TV was not enough, now we have a smartphone. Oh, Gauranga, so dangerous. The moment you open your smartphone, so many things begins to pour. You watch this movie, you see this message, that. There's this kind of video application that you can create your videos and whatnot. And people have really gone crazy now. There is no possibility of mind ever becoming satisfied. The best course is to divert the mind to the Vedic literature, which is full of satisfying stories, as in the Puranas and the Mahabharata. One can take advantage of this knowledge and thus become purified. To do so, switch off your smartphone and switch off your TV, keep it at a distance, and then only you can sit and read scriptures. Otherwise, you know that if the moment you open book, actually people have become so much in passion ignorance today. The moment they open book, they fall asleep. Because the moment they come in touch with goodness, they go into ignorance. That is a problem. So people say, no, 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 we can only watch, we cannot read. You have to end up with to do it. Otherwise, it's actually a diseased state of mind. To give a summary of the subject matter of austerity, we have already described this. I'll just speak about pure goodness. Austerity in pure goodness means which is performed with faith and desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, I didn't spoke about passion and ignorance. In ignorance, it is out of foolishness. The austerities which are performed in Tamoguna is for the purpose of self-abuse and self-torture, and also to destroy others. And passion, the austerities are performed again with the desire to earn name, fame, and recognition, which may be according to scriptures, which can be according against scriptures. Goodness, again, which is performed as a matter of duty, just like a mother. She performs different kind of vratas for the well-being of a family. Like that. That's the point about it. So, like this is a question which you can think. Maybe if we can take it now. And the question is, what kind of austerities devotee perform? And you can classify that according to body, mind, and words. What is austerity prescribed for a devotee at a bodily level? And what at a level of mind and at the level of words? I'll pause to give you time to think, and then I'll give the answer now, considering the delay. The austerities that we have to perform, we are, as a devotee, we are supposed to perform at the level of body is to wake up early in the morning. Is that austerity? Yes or no? To come out from your comfortable, your nice bed, a cozy bed with the AC blowing on your face. I don't feel like coming. And then, what is austerity for the mind for the devotees? To engage your mind in Krishna conscious activities like reading and hearing. What is the austerity for the speech? To chant the holy names of the Lord and to glorify the Lord and not to do prajalpa. Prajalpa means nonsense talk. These are the austerities for body, mind, and words. And Lord Shri Krishna describes further that, Arjuna, it ultimately boils down to one's motivation. What motivation one has, according to that, he performs austerity, sacrifices everything in goodness, passion, ignorance. And Lord continues the discussion and then he speaks about charity. There are charity also being performed under the modes. So here I see that I've concluded my time. So before I proceed ahead, if you all are okay, can I have your 10 minutes extra for today's session? And then we continue ahead with this discussion. Or if you think your quota of time is done for the session, then I can give you conclusion. I can come to the conclusion slide. I do have a fast forward button. I can immediately jump to the conclusion slide as per what you say. So somebody can tell me, our host can tell me about what our audience would like. Okay. So by
So
the time they hear the message.
audience is okay, Prabhuji. Mostly saying yes. So we
Okay,
can
great. So charity in the modes. The innate quality of the soul, the nature of the soul is to serve, as we all know of. And we find, in general, a charitable disposition with every individual to greater or a lesser extent. So, according to one's faith, people make efforts to contribute. And now Krishna discusses the different types of charities and explain that truly benefit people, charity must be performed within certain parameters. So we want to do charity. We should also know, whom to give charity and how much charity is going to affect the well-being of others. That is what Lord Shri Krishna describes in three very important verses, 20th to 22nd. Krishna speaks. Let's begin with goodness first. In goodness, what is a charity being done in mode of goodness? Where a person knows to whom I am giving charity, where the person knows that the person is properly situated in his dharma and in the practice of spiritual culture. The person to whom I'm giving charity is not going to misuse my money for his own sense pleasure, but rather he will use it for the cause of the well being of the society and the service of the Lord. Second thing, the charity being performed in mode of goodness is done according to proper time and is being given without any desire or expectation of return. Where a person gives out of his sweet will, out of his desire to serve, but not to receive anything in return. That is called as charity being done in goodness, at proper time, place, and to a worthy person. So Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport, therefore, the best charity is to give to people who are engaged in spiritual activities or who are promoting the cause of Krishna conscious culture or the message of Bhagavad Gita. What is a charity in mode of passion? Where charity is done under pressure, under you can say an obligation for that reason. Where charity is being done, where a person has a strong sense of desire or expectation for a return, or charity being done in a grudging mood, which means the person is not interested, but under pressure, he gives us like that. And ignorance, the charity being done. So, the charity in mode of passion could be given to a right person, but the consciousness here, the motivation is not right. He is not giving in a happy mood. He is giving just because maybe his wife had told him you should do some charity like that. So maybe that's the reason. Now, ignorance, the charity being done in ignorance means where the person gives charity to those who are unqualified. They misuse your charity which is given not according to proper time, place, and situation. And that's the point. And without proper attention and respect. So, what is the goal of charity? Prabhupada describes the goal of charity as which is described in Vedic scriptures, which is very, very important. You can say as a yajna or a sacrifice for grahastha. particularly is to cultivate Krishna consciousness or to make spiritual advancement. Otherwise, a person will be bound in the pious activity or the sinful pious results or the sinful results according to whom he has given the charity. So, essence is we don't want to perform activities which further traps us into the modes of consciousness like sattvagun, rajagun, and tamagun. Because if we are trapped into it again, even in sattvaguna, we will be forced to take birth again into this material world. Therefore, Prabhupada says we should perform all the acts of our austerity, our sacrifice, our charity, all the food that we eat, the music that we hear, all should be done in pure goodness, which means which is being done to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, what is pure goodness? The consciousness and the pure goodness is our actions are being done as a service to the Lord. The food that we consume is a prasadam of the Lord. And everything and in anything and everything, our all actions are connected with the Lord. And finally, we come to the discussion, the last section of this chapter 17, the conclusion, which is actually also the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita actually ends with the 17th chapter. And the 18th chapter that we're going to discuss tomorrow is actually a recap of everything that Lord Shri Krishna has discussed, but is very, very important where Lord Shri Krishna is going to give us his concluding instructions and where Krishna would ask Arjuna, Arjuna, have you understood this message or not? And he will reveal some more transcendental wisdom and knowledge, which we'll share tomorrow. So, if you see throughout this chapter, Krishna discusses all his themes based on the different modes of nature. So, in other words, it is very essential for all of us to understand that all our activities, even those being performed goodness, will will yield a pious result, which means a karmic reaction, and which will bind us further to this world and will have to take birth again in this world. So, question arises: is there a way out? In which means I perform my activities, but I don't even get a pious result for it or pious reaction because otherwise I'll be forced to take birth again. Is there a way I can come out of this whole cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease? And this is what Lord Shri Krishna explains in this concluding section, where Krishna says, yes, God is defined as a supreme enjoyer by the three words Om Tat Sat. Thus, if our sacrifice, penance, and austerities are dedicated to the Supreme, done for His pleasure and favor, then such activities of ours yield permanent benefit and ultimate freedom, setting us free from the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. With this kind of transcendental aim, all our activities becomes liberating instead of binding. Just like offering our food to the Lord, the act of offering our food to the Lord and consuming that as Krishna Prasadam is an act of liberating, as compared to you only eating a vegetarian diet, which binds us. So, for this purpose, Lord Shri Krishna explains once again at the end of the 17th chapter with the subject matter of Om Tat Sat from Shlok Sankhya 23 to 28, where Lord Shri Krishna explains that everything should be done as an offering to the Lord, and that's how we can get liberated through the actions that we perform. If not, if we don't do it, Lord Shri Krishna says, Ashraddhaya hutam dattam tapastaptam kritam chayat asat iti uchyate partha nacha tat no iha. Anything done as sacrifice, charity, or penance without faith in the Supreme, O son of Pratha, is temporary. It is called asat and is useless both in this life and the next. So all our the endeavors becomes useless if it is not for the pleasure of the Lord. And that is how Lord Shri Krishna concludes the 17th chapter, where Srila Prabhupada writes a very beautiful conclusion to his purport, where Srila Prabhupada says, in the conditioned state, people are affected or attracted to worshipping devatas, ghosts, or yakshasas like Kuvera. The mode of goodness is better than the mode of passion and ignorance. But one who takes directly to Krishna consciousness is transcendental to all three modes of material nature. Although there is a process of gradual elevation, if one by the association of pure devotees takes directly to Krishna consciousness, that is the best way, and that is recommended in this chapter. To achieve success in this way, one must first find the proper spiritual master and receive training under his direction. Then one can achieve faith in the Supreme, and when that faith matures in course of time, it is called love of God. And this love is the ultimate goal of the living entities. One should therefore take to Krishna consciousness directly, and that is the message of the 17th chapter, to engage in direct service of the Lord. To conclude, the acronym this chapter was FACE, where F stands for faith, where Lord Shri Krishna explained that how our faith is governed or influenced by the mode of consciousness, and the kind of faith we have, according to that, we accept different religious practices. Similarly, our austerities, charity, all are influenced by the mode of consciousness. To conclude, finally, in the last section, Om Tat Sat, Krishna again explains that I am the ultimate beneficiary and the enjoyer of all what you do. Therefore, hey Arjuna, your all actions should be performed for my pleasure. And when you do so, that becomes yoga, which liberates you from your current situation and ends your continuous association with the material world once for all. With which we conclude our 17th chapter, and tomorrow we'll meet for the concluding section or the concluding session of our Gita Essence course, chapter 18. Very, very beautiful chapter again, particularly the last segment, where there's a very sweet discussion between Krishna and Arjuna, and finally between Sanjay and Dhritarashtra, where there is no sweetness in the discussion of Sanjay and Dhritarashtra because Dhritarashtra is only hearing, and Sanjay is giving the conclusion. What's going to happen now, and what will be the result of the battle of Kurukshetra, which we shall see tomorrow. And as I had announced yesterday, we'll do confirm you on Monday, but I'm planning to have one question answer session, dedicated session for any question answers or any comments on Monday evening at the same time, 7 to 8. However, that session would be done on Zoom. You'll get the details for it on Monday morning. With that, thank you all for joining us once again and bearing with me for going few minutes extra our planned time. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Indeed, a truly lifestyle management class. That's what I feel. We talk about food, we talk about music, how we talked about austerities of body, we talked about austerities of mind, we talked about charity, we talked about how Krishna is ultimate enjoyer. And then finally we conclude Om Tat Sat, that how everything is belongs to Krishna and how we can improve ourselves to situated it from mode of ignorance and mode of passion to mode of goodness, and then finally to the pure goodness. Thank you once again for this informative sessions. We have few questions, Prabhuji. You would like to go ahead with the question answer session with your permission? Okay, so I missed few questions which come during comments discussions. So I'm putting Tarun Shuklaji question now. His question was during the discussion of food. We discuss about like um, various foods situated in mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. So a modern lifestyle question: does burger, pizza comes in tamasic food?
What do you think? What the audience thinks? Let's ask the audience.
Okay, so we'll wait for audience to comment now.
So, what does audience think about burger and pizza? Actually, I really don't know much about how it is being prepared and all that. If your mother prepares it, like she prepares aloo ka paratha, for me, aloo ka paratha is pizza. It's like a with nice crust and all that. You know, so as long as you're preparing it at at your own house is okay. Burger, again, is a bread. Because again it's a baked item. Generally, we in our culture we never consume baked item because that is generally eaten after a while. You can preserve it and use it over a period of time. So that generally was not our culture again ever. So that more or less comes into that category. But if once in a while is okay, that's not a sin. If in case you're too attracted or you have that taste to eat baked items, It's good if it is freshly baked and consumed, but if something which is kept for a few days and then you eat it, that will definitely come under mode of ignorance like that. But once you offer to the Lord, that's the one advantage, by the way, for all of you pizza lovers. If you cook and offer it to the Lord, and if you want to eat it later in the day, that still would be in pure goodness. Because once you offer to the Lord, then the influence of the modes disappear. Then it's not in Sattva, Rajas, Tamoguna. Just like Jagannath Puri Prashadam is famous up to today. You can eat it even after 7 days, it does not even get spoiled. You know? So that's the thing about Prashadam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Next question from Akash Marthaji. He is asking, Prabhuji, many astrologers are telling that this is the end of Kali Yuga is near, and there are rumors that Kalki Avatar has already taken birth. Is it true?
You can ask those astrologers only. And if Kalki Avatar has taken appearance, you can go and meet him and tell him, my dear Kalki Avatar, 5,000 years ago you showed your universal form to Arjuna. Can you show us also? And if he shows universal form, then you can believe him. But I don't know which astrologer speaks like this. We have only just crossed 5,000 years of the duration of Kali Yuga, which is 4 lakh and 32,000 years. So you have 4 lakh 27,000 years more to go to Kali Yuga. All right. This is according to Vedic scriptures and the Vedic calculation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Next question from Akash Akshay Deshpande. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, how much time it will take to come in mode of goodness from mode of passion?
Well, you stop your activities in mode of passion. You start practicing mode of goodness culture. You'll get situated in it more and more pretty soon. And it all begins with chanting, getting up early in the morning and chanting your rounds like that. And that's how you become gradually fixed up in mode of goodness. See, you have to understand, you cannot give up mode of passion. There are certain activities in our life. So in our life in general, all the three modes are there. So what we are trying to work out in our life is increase the influence of goodness, trying to make goodness to be the predominating mode in our consciousness. That's the point. And that all depends on how sincerely you take to spiritual culture. To the degree of your sincerity, you'll get reciprocation accordingly. All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Next question from Meera Hariji. She is asking, when people who are close to us behave indifferent or harsh that affect us emotionally, we get angry, sad, between passion and ignorance. How to handle such situation in the mode of goodness?
If you are in mode of goodness, you will handle it appropriately. It's not in your hand to switch on the modes. It's not that you are in mode of goodness and now you decide. Hiranyakashipu, with the movement of his eyebrows, he could change the temperature. So we are not like that. With the movement of our eyebrows, we can change the mode of ignorance to mode of goodness. If you're in mode of goodness, you react like that. If you're in mode of passion, you react like this. So it's about your attitude, it's about how you have cultivated your consciousness, and in whatever mode you are, you react to it. You react accordingly. It's not that we have too much time, because if you're in mode of goodness, then you have time to think. When you're not in mode of goodness, you will not even think about it. You will just react impulsively. That is the point about it. All right.
Okay. There's one more question. Bharte Panikar is asking, one question disturbing me of late is where Krishna advises Arjun to rise and fight, and in his advice asks us to refrain from outburst.
Oh, there's a lot of difference between his advice for you to not, get angry, and where he's asking Krishna, Arjuna to get angry. Just like Hanumanji had to fight. When you fight, you have to get angry, or you fight while smiling. Ha ha ha! Chalo, aaj ladenge hum. It's not the way. You have to be natural. You know. So, what was the purpose of Hanumanji getting angry? Because he had to protect Dharma. He was serving Sri Lord Ram by becoming angry at Ravana, who had performed a sinful action. Similarly, for Arjuna, he was getting angry on the order of the Lord to protect Dharma, because somebody else who was on the other side of the army had cheated them and had betrayed them and had broken the principles of Dharma. So, if that's the case in your life, then you have the right to get angry. So, it is explained we have the right to get angry when somebody criticizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead, somebody criticizes Vaishnavas, we have the right to get angry just like Hanumanji and Arjuna got angry. When it comes for our own individual self, then we have to exercise tolerance. Why we have to exercise tolerance? Because we know that whatever happens in our life is because of our karmic reactions, whatever we have done in the past. So the person who right now is becoming an instrument because of which we are becoming angry is actually nothing but an instrument of our own past karma. So that's the reason for our own personal self we don't get angry. But when it comes as a matter of protecting dharma, protecting the well-being of the Vaishnavas, devotees, and the Lord, that's the time devotee becomes angry. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. One question from Chandni Khandelwalji. She is asking, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, while reading Srimad Bhagavatam chapter 3, I couldn't understand the lifespan of Brahma, like Brahma's one day is equal to what? Can you explain it?
So Brahma, so this is being explained. Prabhupada also explains this one of the purport of Bhagavad Gita very nicely. I'll skipping that particular purport number. I'll message you later on. We can post it on the group or maybe tomorrow. So, what is Brahma's life calculation? That is according to earthly time, the time on this planet. According to that, what is the calculation? Brahma's one day. To begin with, there are four yuga cycles. Four yuga cycle means there is Satyayug, Treta, Dwapar, and Kali Yuga, which makes, you can call it one yuga cycle precisely. And like this, when there are 1,000 yuga cycles, that makes it one day of Brahma. All right. So 4,32,000 years is the duration of Kali Yuga. Multiply by 2 becomes the duration of Dwapara Yuga. Multiplied by 3 becomes the duration of Treta Yuga. Multiplied by 4 becomes the duration of Satya Yuga. And when you sum up it together, becomes the duration of one Yuga cycle. Multiply by 1,000 becomes the duration of one day of Brahma. One day of Brahma, which means the 12 hours of Brahma. Similarly, there are 12 hours of dark, of night. So, which means this whole thing multiplied by 2 gives you the 24 hours of Brahma. All right? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So we have exhausted all questions now and we can conclude for today's
All
and
right. So, thank you
tomorrow.
all very much once again. And thank you to our host also. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Ki jai. Thank you to all our viewers on various platforms. We'll see you tomorrow on the last sessions, but not the least. Very important session where we conclude the Bhagavad Gita summary. Hare Krishna once again.